At a charity event in Oakland, a 9-year-old girl approached Steph Curry for an autograph. She said just one sentence, 7 simple words about food, that made the NBA star cry in front of everyone. What Maya didn't know was that her innocent words were about to change not only her own life, but touch the hearts of millions of people around the world. The alarm didn't go off that Tuesday morning in Oakland, but Maya Johnson woke up anyway. At 9 years old, she had already developed an EIO internal clock that woke her at 6:15, 15 minutes before her grandmother Martha needed to leave for her first job of the day. The second-floor apartment in the Pine Ridge housing complex was silent, except for the distant hum of the old air conditioner struggling against the California morning heat. Maya slid her bare feet across the cold linoleum of the kitchen, her steps carefully silent so as not to wake the neighbors through the thin walls. "Grandma Martha, it's 6:15, she whispered, gently touching the shoulder of the 64-year-old woman still sleeping on the sofa bed in the living room. Martha opened her eyes slowly, the weight of another day of double work. Cleaning offices in the morning, diner in the afternoon, already evident in her tired expression. But when she saw Maya's worried little face, her smile appeared as it always did, genuine and full of love. "Thank you, my angel. You're my most reliable alarm clock." While Martha got ready to leave, Maya organized her own morning routine. She brushed her teeth with the nearly empty toothpaste, combed her curly hair into 2 uneven pigtails, and put on the school uniform that Martha had washed in the sink the night before. Breakfast at home didn't exist. There was a box of cereal in the pantry, but the milk had run out 3 days earlier. Maya knew that breakfast would happen at Jefferson Elementary School, where the federal program guaranteed that children like her started the day with something in their stomachs. "Maya, you go straight to school after classes, okay? I won't get home until after 9 tonight," said Martha, adjusting her cleaning coat that smelled slightly of chemicals. "I know, Grandma. After-school program until 6. Then I come home and do homework." Martha kissed her granddaughter's forehead and paused for a moment, her eyes revealing the guilt she carried every day. She wanted to give Maya more food, more opportunities, more presents. But reality was relentless. 2 jobs barely paid the rent and basic bills. "You're a strong girl, Maya. Never forget that." After Martha left, Maya walked the 8 blocks to school. The streets of East Oakland woke up slowly. Workers waiting for the bus, the aroma of morning tacos coming from food trucks, the distant sound of Bay Bridge traffic. At Jefferson School, Maya joined the free breakfast line. Toast with jelly, chocolate milk, and a small banana. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, knowing that lunch wouldn't come for 4 hours. During math class, Maya's stomach rumbled quietly. She pressed her hand against her belly, hoping no one would hear. The teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, noticed. She always noticed, but continued the lesson without making Maya feel embarrassed. School lunch was Maya's favorite time. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, corn, and an apple. She ate everything, down to the last crumbs. Some children complained about school food, but for Maya, these were the best meals of her days. "Maya, do you want seconds?" asked Mrs. Carmen, the kitchen staff member who knew the stories of many children there. "Can I?" Maya's eyes lit up. "Of course, honey. You always can." After school, Maya participated in the city-funded after-school program. It was there, in the activities room, that she watched Golden State Warriors games on the small TV hanging in the corner. Steph Curry was her absolute hero, not just for the impossible 3-point shots, but because she had heard that he did community work in Oakland. "Someday, I'm going to meet him," Maya murmured to herself, watching Curry make another incredible shot. At 6 in the evening, Maya returned home. Dinner was usually instant ramen or a peanut butter sandwich, when there was any. She did homework at the little kitchen table, under the dim light of the fluorescent bulb that flickered occasionally. Sometimes, when hunger struck at night, Maya drank water to fill her stomach. She had learned this trick on her own without telling Martha, who already carried enough weight on her shoulders. On that specific night, while doing math problems, Maya heard on the neighbor's television that Steph Curry and his wife Isha were launching a new community program in Oakland. Something about food, education, and recreation. Her heart raced. Maybe, just maybe, she would have a chance to meet her hero. Maya didn't know that in less than a week, her innocent words would change not only her own life, but touch the heart of one of the world's most famous athletes in a way he would never forget. She fell asleep that night, dreaming of three-point shots and wondering what a real meal would taste like. Something she was sure existed, but had never experienced. A week later, Maya stood in front of the cracked mirror in the apartment bathroom, trying to fix her hair for the 5th time. Today was the day. Jefferson School had selected 20 students to participate in the Eat, Learn, Play community event at the Martin Luther King Jr. Gymnasium, and Maya was among the chosen ones. "Grandma Martha, are you sure I look pretty?" she asked, adjusting the pink blouse that Martha had bought at a thrift store especially for the occasion. Martha smiled, gently smoothing her granddaughter's hair. "You look beautiful, my angel. And, more importantly, you're being yourself. That's what matters." On the school bus on the way to the event, Maya pressed her face against the window, watching the neighborhoods gradually change. They left East Oakland and entered a tidier area where houses had manicured gardens and newer cars in the driveways. The Martin Luther King Jr. Gymnasium was transformed. Colorful Warriors banners decorated the walls, activity stations scattered throughout the space, and the aroma of home cooking filled the air. Maya had never seen anything like it. "Remember, children," said Mrs. Rodriguez, "you can participate in all the activities, but be polite and wait your turn." "And, Maya," she crouched down to the girl's height, "I know you really want to meet Steph Curry. Be patient, okay?" Maya nodded vigorously, her eyes already searching for the familiar figure among the adults organizing the event. And then she saw him. Steph Curry was crouched next to a small child, helping them make a shot on a lowered basket. He wore a simple Warriors shirt and sneakers, nothing too flashy, but his presence illuminated that section of the gymnasium. Maya was paralyzed. Suddenly, aware that her hero was a real person, not just a figure on television. "Go on, Maya," whispered her classmate Marcus. "You've talked about him all year." But Maya couldn't move. What if he was too busy? What if she said something wrong? What if he didn't want to talk to her? For 2 hours, she participated in other activities, painted a community mural, picked up new books at the reading station, played basketball with volunteers, but her eyes always returned to Steph Curry, who moved through the gymnasium with genuine energy, truly interested in every child he spoke with. The time for the community meal had arrived. Volunteers served plates with grilled chicken, rice, roasted vegetables, and salad. Maya ate slowly, savoring each forkful. It was different from school food, more spices, more interesting textures. Isha Curry was in the improvised kitchen, coordinating everything with a radiant smile. After lunch came the moment Maya had been waiting for, the autograph session. The FD line seemed endless. Maya stood at the end, her hands sweating, her heart beating so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. One by one, the children reached the table where Steph Curry sat, received their autographs, took quick photos, and moved on. Finally, it was Maya's turn. She approached the table with small, hesitant steps. Steph Curry looked up from the photo he was signing, and his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Hi, what's your name?" he asked, his voice softer and warmer than Maya had imagined. "Maya," she whispered, so quietly that he had to lean in to hear. "Maya, what a beautiful name. Do you know it means illusion in Sanskrit? But you're very real, aren't you?" he said with a playful smile, trying to put her at ease. Maya nodded, still unable to believe she was actually talking to him. Instead of simply signing something and moving on to the next child, Steph Curry did something unexpected. He pushed his chair back and pulled an empty chair over for Maya. "Sit here, with me. I want to chat for a bit." Maya sat down, her legs swinging from the chair that was too tall for her. "Do you play basketball?" asked Curry. "A little, at school, but I'm not very good." "Oh, that doesn't matter. The important thing is to have fun. I wasn't very good when I was your age either. What's your favorite part of basketball?" Maya's eyes lit up. "I like watching you make those three-point shots, especially when you point to the sky afterward." Curry laughed, a genuine and warm laugh. "Ah, you noticed that? It's my way of saying thank you. And tell me, Maya, what's your favorite subject in school?" "Math. I like numbers." "That's incredible. Math is in everything, even basketball. Angles, distances, probabilities." They talked for several minutes about school, dreams, and plans for the future. Maya was beginning to relax, her natural personality gradually emerging. "And tell me," said Curry, leaning back in his chair, "what's your favorite food? Did you like today's lunch?" The question was innocent, casual. Curry expected to hear about pizza, hamburgers, or maybe something Isha had prepared. He was smiling, expecting a typical child's response. Maya was silent for a moment, her eyes lowered to her hands clasped in her lap. When she looked up again, there was devastating honesty in her expression. "I don't know, Mr. Curry," she said, in a small but clear voice. "I've never eaten a real meal. I only eat at school, and at home it's just packet noodles that come in those little bags." Steph Curry's smile slowly disappeared. His face went through a series of expressions: confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like physical pain. He blinked several times, as if processing words in a foreign language. "What do you mean by a real meal?" he asked, his voice now lower. "Like what you served today," Maya continued, not realizing the impact of her words. "With everything together on the plate. And that doesn't come from a box. My Grandma Martha works a lot, but we don't have money to buy food like that. So I eat at school, and at home it's just noodles, or sometimes a sandwich." Steph Curry became completely still. Maya saw his eyes fill with tears and felt a tightness in her chest. "Mr. Curry, are you okay? Did I say something wrong?" He shook his head quickly, trying to compose himself, but the tears had already begun to stream down his face. There he was, one of the richest athletes in the world, sitting in front of a 9-year-old girl who had just revealed, with the brutal innocence of childhood, a reality that existed just a few miles from his mansion in Atherton. The gymnasium continued full of laughter and conversations around them, but in that small space where Maya and Steph Curry sat, the world had stopped. Maya extended her small hand and gently touched his arm. "Don't be sad, Mr. Curry. I'm fine like this. the school food is good." These words, a 9-year-old child's attempt to console an adult who was crying because of her own situation, broke something fundamental inside Steph Curry's heart. He knew this moment would change everything. Steph Curry tried to wipe his eyes with the back of his hand, but the tears kept coming. He looked at Maya, who sat in front of him with an expression of genuine concern, and felt something break and rebuild inside him at the same time. "Maya," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "you didn't say anything wrong. In fact, you just taught me something very important." He crouched down to be exactly at her eye level, completely ignoring the fact that he was on the floor of a public gymnasium, with his expensive clothes now dusty. "Can I ask you something? Do you live alone with your grandmother?" Maya nodded. "My grandma Martha. She's taken care of me since I was little. She works a lot, cleans offices in the morning and works at a diner in the afternoon. She always says we're fine, that we have everything we need." "And you do," Curry said quickly. "You have love, which is the most important thing. But, Maya, you deserve to have real meals every day. Every child deserves that." Maya tilted her head, confused. "But we don't have money for that." "I know, sweetheart, and that's not your fault or your grandmother's fault. Sometimes adults, we forget to properly take care of the important things." Steph Curry looked around the gymnasium, seeing the other children playing, their families talking, volunteers cleaning up. He saw Isha on the other side of the space, coordinating the cleanup of the improvised kitchen, and something clicked in his mind. "Maya, can you wait here for just a minute? I need to talk to my wife." He got up and walked quickly to Isha, who immediately noticed his altered expression and red eyes. "Steph, what happened?" she asked, drying her hands on her apron. "Isha, I need to tell you something," he said, pulling her to a more private corner. In a low voice, he recounted the entire conversation with Maya, his words tumbling out in his urgency. Isha listened in silence, her expression gradually changing from concern to understanding, and finally to determination. "Where is she?" she asked. "Over there, waiting." "Isha, I can't just give an autograph and move on, not after what she told me." "Then we won't do that," said Isha firmly. "We'll do something different." They returned together to where Maya sat, now accompanied by Mrs. Rodriguez, who had noticed the commotion. "Maya, this is my wife, Isha," said Curry. "She's an incredible chef." "Hi, Maya," said Isha, crouching in front of the girl. "My husband told me you've never tried a real home-cooked meal. That's something we can change right now." "What do you mean?" asked Maya, her eyes alternating between Steph and Isha. "How about we go to the supermarket and buy ingredients to make a special meal just for you?" "Right now?" suggested Isha. Maya's eyes widened. "Really? But won't that be too much? Trouble?" Steph Curry laughed through the tears that still glistened in his eyes. "Maya, meeting you was the best part of my day. Making a special meal for you would be an honor." 15 minutes later, an improvised small group walked through the aisles of the local Safeway. Steph Curry pushed a shopping cart, with Maya by his side, while Isha consulted a mental list of ingredients she would need. "What do you think about roasted chicken?" Isha asked Maya. "With golden potatoes, carrots, and maybe some green vegetables?" "I've never had roasted chicken," Maya admitted, "but it sounds good." "And how about we make homemade bread too?" suggested Steph. "The kind you can smell coming out of the oven." Maya just nodded, still not quite believing what was happening. They filled the cart with fresh ingredients: a whole chicken, potatoes, carrots, green beans, spices, flour for bread, and even dessert. In the checkout line, Maya watched quietly while Steph paid, her eyes processing the amount of food in the cart. "Is all this for me?" she asked quietly. "For you and anyone you want to share with," replied Isha. "Good food is meant to be shared." Back at the gymnasium, which was now almost empty, Isha commanded an unlikely culinary operation. Volunteers who were still there offered to help, transforming the gymnasium kitchen into a true gastronomic laboratory. Maya sat on a high stool, watching Isha season the chicken with a mixture of herbs and spices she had never seen before. Steph helped peeling potatoes, making bad jokes that made Maya laugh genuinely for the first time that day. "Maya, do you want to help me with the bread?" asked Isha. "I need someone with small hands to knead the dough." For an hour, Maya worked side by side with Isha Curry, learning to knead dough, discovering what different spices smelled like, watching the magic of cooking happen before her eyes. The aroma that began to fill the gymnasium was different from anything Maya had ever experienced. It wasn't the metallic smell of school food or the artificial aroma of instant ramen. It was the smell of food made with love, with time, with real ingredients. When everything was finally ready, they set up a special place at one of the tables. Maya's plate had golden and juicy chicken, perfectly roasted potatoes, caramelized carrots, crispy green beans, and a thick slice of still warm bread with melting butter. Maya held the fork, hesitant. "Go ahead, you can try it," encouraged Isha. Maya cut a small piece of chicken and brought it to her mouth. Her expressions changed like waves, first surprise, then recognition. Finally, pure joy. Her eyes widened and she smiled with her mouth full. This is incredible," she said after swallowing. "It has so much flavor." Steph Curry discreetly took out his phone and filmed a few seconds. Not Maya's face, but her small hands holding the fork, the careful way she tried each item on the plate. It wasn't for social media or advertising. It was for him to remember that moment for the rest of his life. Maya ate slowly, savoring each forkful, making small sounds of approval. When she tried the homemade bread, she closed her eyes and sighed with contentment. "Grandma Martha needs to try this," she said suddenly. "Can I take some to her?" "Of course," said Isha, already packing a complete meal to take home. "And Maya, I'm going to teach you the recipe. That way you can make it for her whenever you want." While Maya finished eating, Steph Curry stepped away a bit and called the coordinator of the Eat, Learn, Play, Foundation. "We need to talk," he said on the phone, his voice still loaded with emotion. "Right now. We have work to do." When Maya finally finished the meal, she turned to Steph and Isha with tears in her eyes, not of sadness, but of a happiness she didn't know how to express. "Thank you," was all she could say. "Thank you, Maya," replied Steph Curry, his voice firm now, full of purpose. "For reminding me what really matters." 3 days after the event at the gymnasium, Steph Curry couldn't get Maya out of his thoughts. During practices, between plays, in team meetings, the girl's words echoed in his mind. "I've never eaten a real meal." That Thursday afternoon, he stood in front of the Pine Ridge housing complex, holding 2 heavy bags of groceries and feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. Isha was beside him, carrying a thermal pot with a homemade meal still warm. "Apartment 2B, he murmured, checking the address he had obtained through Maya's school with proper permissions. When Maya opened the door and saw who was there, her eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Curry? Mrs. Curry? What are you doing here?" "We wanted to meet your Grandma Martha," said Steph with a smile. "And we brought some things." Martha appeared behind Maya, still wearing her diner uniform, her eyes tired but suspicious. At 64 years old, she had learned to be cautious with strangers, especially those who seemed to have a lot of money. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Martha," said Isha respectfully. "I'm Isha Curry, and this is my husband Steph. Maya told us a lot about you." "Maya talked about you too," Martha replied cautiously. "She hasn't stopped talking about that meal since Tuesday." "May I ask if we can come in?" requested Steph. "We'd like to talk with you, if possible." During the next hour, sitting in the small living room with worn but impeccably clean furniture, Steph and Isha listened to Martha's story. How she had raised Maya alone since the girl was 2 years old. How she worked 2 jobs to pay rent and basic bills. How she did the best she could. But sometimes, it wasn't enough. "I'm not too proud to accept help," Martha said finally, "but I'm also not the type who goes around asking for handouts. Maya and I, we manage." "We know," said Isha gently. "You're doing an incredible job. Maya is a special child, polite, intelligent. That doesn't happen by accident." "What we want," continued Steph, "isn't to give charity. We want to form a partnership. Maya taught us something important about our own community. Now we want to learn more." They explained about the expansion of the Foundation's programs, specifically focused on food insecurity in Oakland. Martha listened, asked practical questions, and gradually her suspicion transformed into cautious interest. "And if Maya wants to participate, she can help us identify other families going through the same situation," suggested Isha. "Sometimes children know things that adults don't notice." Maya, who had been quiet during the entire conversation, finally spoke. "There are more kids at school who only eat school lunch, too. Marcus, Jasmine, little Tony." "See?" said Steph to Martha. "She's already helping us." In the following weeks, changes began to happen. Steph Curry tripled the Foundation's budget for food programs in Oakland. New partners emerged. Local, supermarkets donating ingredients, restaurants offering culinary training, volunteers organizing for home deliveries. But the most significant change was organic. The story of the meeting between Maya and Steph Curry didn't spread through social media or traditional media. It spread in the most powerful way possible, from person to person, from heart to heart. Martha told her co-workers. Mrs. Rodriguez shared with other teachers. Families in the Pine Ridge housing complex began talking among themselves. And slowly, more people began to identify themselves, to admit their own struggles, to accept help without shame. Maya became an unofficial ambassador for the program. She knew the children at her school, knew which families were struggling, and had a natural way of connecting people who needed help with people who wanted to help. "Maya has a gift," commented Mrs. Rodriguez to Steph during one of his visits to the school. "She makes people feel safe, to be honest." 6 months later, on a sunny March afternoon, the Martin Luther King Jr. Gymnasium was again decorated for a Foundation event. But this time, it was different. Bigger, more organized, and with an energy of genuine celebration. Maya arrived with Martha, but she was no longer the shy girl from 6 months before. She was visibly healthier, more confident, and carried a tray covered with a dish towel. "Mr. Curry! Mrs. Curry!" She ran to them with a radiant smile. "Maya, how are you?" Steph greeted her with a warm hug. "I brought something for you," she said, uncovering the tray. "I made it." On the tray were homemade rolls, golden and fragrant, clearly made by small but careful hands. "You made this?" asked Isha, impressed. "The recipe you taught me." And I taught Grandma Martha, too. Now we make bread every Sunday, and sometimes I make it for neighbors who don't know how to cook. Steph took one of the rolls and took a bite. It was simple, but made with love. A little irregular, slightly too salty, but absolutely perfect. "Maya, this is the best bread I've ever eaten in my life," he said, and he wasn't lying. During the event, Maya introduced Steph and Isha to other children. Marcus, whose father had started participating in community cooking classes, Jasmine, whose family now received weekly fresh food baskets, Tony, whose grandparents had learned about food assistance programs they didn't know existed. "These are the children I told you about," said Maya proudly. "Now they also know what a real meal is like." At the end of the event, when the gymnasium was almost empty, Maya approached Steph with a serious expression. "Mr. Curry, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Maya. Anything." "Why did you cry that day, when I said I had never eaten a real meal?" Steph crouched down to be at her height, as he had done 6 months before. "Because you made me realize I was living in a bubble," he said honestly. "I thought I was helping my community, but I didn't really understand what the Ravitikiyu's needs were. You taught me to truly see. And now you see? Now I see. And more importantly, now I listen. You taught me that sometimes the most important answers come from the simplest questions." Maya smiled and hugged him. "Thank you for teaching me to cook," she said. "Yesterday I made dinner for Grandma Martha. She cried, but it was happy crying. She said she was proud of me." As Maya and Martha prepared to leave, Steph watched the girl helping her grandmother with the bags of food they were taking home. They weren't donations. They were ingredients that Martha had chosen during the nutritional planning classes she now attended regularly. "She saved my life, you know," said Martha, standing next to Steph. "Maya, when her parents died, and she came to live with me, I thought I would be the one taking care of her. But she's the one who takes care of me. Every day." "She saved us too," replied Steph. "In a way, she can't even imagine." That night, Maya was in the kitchen of the ED2 Pine Ridge apartment, preparing dinner. It was no longer instant ramen. It was chicken seasoned with spices that Isha had taught her, brown rice, and vegetables she had learned to prepare in different ways. While she cooked, she hummed quietly, something Martha hadn't heard in years. The apartment was full of new aromas, renewed hope, possibilities that didn't exist before. "Maya," said Martha, watching her granddaughter cook, "do you remember what I always tell you? That you're a strong girl?" "I remember, Grandma." "Well, now I know you're also a powerful girl. You changed our life. And from what I see in that gymnasium, you changed a lot of people's lives." Maya smiled, stirring the pot with the concentration of a professional chef. "I just told the truth, Grandma. The same thing you taught me. Always tell the truth, even when it's hard." And that's how an honest conversation from a 9-year-old child created waves that continued expanding far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Maya had taught a superstar that true greatness isn't in broken records or conquered trophies, but in the ability to listen, to see, and to act when confronted with real need. Today, 3 years later, the expanded program feeds more than 5,000 families in Oakland every month. Maya, now 12 years old, is still an official ambassador for the program. And every Thursday, she cooks dinner for Martha. Real meals, made with love, seasoned with the wisdom that sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the simplest words from a child brave enough to speak her truth.